The UFC welterweight championship still runs through England as Leon Rocky Edwards has successfully defended the title for a second time. At UFC 296, he was able to secure the decision victory over Colby Chaos Covington in a fight that turned into a very bitter rivalry by the time the fights rolled around on Saturday. We're here to recap what happened and what is next for Leon, paired with the flyweight champion of the world, Alexandre Pantoja, defending his title for the first time and improving to 2-0 against Brandon Raw Dog Royval. Let's talk about the welterweight division and the welterweight champion, and let's talk about the flyweight division and the flyweight champion. The last time that Leon Edwards tasted defeat was 8 years ago and 13 fights ago. And now here he is, successfully defending a championship twice, once against one of the best welterweights of all time in Kamaru Usman, and the second time at UFC 296 against a former two-time title challenger, Colby Chaos Covington. What a story that it continues to be, this career that we are witnessing from Leon Edwards. It is unbelievable, being from England. Now we have two English champions as well because of Tom Aspinall not too long ago, back in November. English MMA is on fire, really just UK in general, and it's spearheaded by the likes of Aspinall and Leon Rocky Edwards here, and they just keep growing this sport. They keep growing the game, and they keep representing the sport well for their country and to grow it in their country. Leon Edwards looked incredible on Saturday night. He not only outstruck Colby Covington with the boxing and with the kicks, brutal leg kicks that he landed. He out grappled, he out wrestled Colby Covington. There was about 2.5, 3 minute kind of spot at the very end of the fifth round where Colby was able to hold top control and positioning. But outside of that, this was all Leon Edwards. He dominated this fight through and through. It was a 49-46 unanimous decision across the board. And it was just an amazing performance. I keep going back to that Teddy Atlas quote heading into the second or the third fight, I guess, with Kamaru technically, but the second title fight for Leon, where Teddy said, once you become a champion, you get 30% better. And I think it continues to show here now in these two title defenses. Leon has shown he's growing leaps and bounds, not only with keeping his striking and evolving his striking, but growing in the grappling department so much in just one calendar year, essentially, of 2023 is quite remarkable. To be able to defend takedowns of two of the best wrestlers of all time at 170 pounds, to out grapple Colby and have even a takedown against Kamaru Usman in the second fight, just shows how good he is at 32 years old, right in those prime years. Leon's proving that he has all the makings to be a long-standing champion, and we're going to get into more of the welterweight division in a later point, but right now Leon is at the top of the throne. He's proving that he is etching a little bit of a gap. There are still other fighters that may have a say. One of them fought on this card. The other was the backup fighter for this championship fight. Let's talk about both of them here. We won't talk about Shavkat's performance per se, but Shavkat, first of all, beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson by submission. That was number 5 in the world versus number 6 in the world. Shavkat's 18-0, 18 finishes. He's a phenom, and he is a future champion, undoubtedly. Whether he takes the belt from Leon or in the future beats someone else to become the champion, he will be a UFC champion. And he has a rightful claim to be the number 1 contender and the next challenger to Leon's belt. However, we also have Belal Muhammad, who is on a 9 or 10 fight unbeaten streak. I say unbeaten because he had the no contest with Leon Edwards a few years back. He has earned it, if you want to use that word. A lot of people don't like using that word in the UFC. It doesn't hold as much merit as you would like that word to hold. They have a history. It would be a rematch. It's two guys that are on the biggest win streaks in the entire division. I think you add that together, it is a recipe for a good next step for Leon and for Belal. Now, will the UFC pursue that option? I don't know. I would imagine Muhammad will get his chance to fight for the title, being that he came in here and was the backup. He made weight. He hasn't really said no to fights. He's fought contenders and veterans coming through the ranks, leaving the ranks. He's been there and done that throughout the win streak, much like Leon Edwards, for the most part, has done much of the same. I think that's why that fight makes so much sense. I will say a negative aspect to me as a fan, maybe to a lot of fans, is that the type of fight that we got here between Leon and Colby, albeit Colby had a very, very strange performance. I feel like this would be a very similar fight and how this played out when Leon and Bilal would fight again. Now, we saw them again. What year would that have been? Was that 2021, March? In a main event was when they fought, Bilal and Leon. Leon looked great early on in that fight, the first round, really, because it only went 18 seconds into the second before the eye poke. Leon was looking very sharp and crisp on the feet, landing very, very good shots. The eye poke happens, the fight ends. They went their separate ways. Leon's become the champion. He's fought Nate Diaz, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington. Bilal's, had his fair share of a win streak, including, wins over Luke and Sean Brady, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. It's been a good streak for both of these guys. They've done enough separately to, I feel like, come back together and have a championship fight. It's just a matter of if there is fan interest in that, when I feel like there would be more fan interest in a fight with someone like Shavkat Rakhmonov. And there was a poll that we put on the Below Average Joe's MMA Show Twitter. Feel free, shameless plug, to go follow there and even vote while it's still live throughout the day today. And it is 67% for Shavkat, 33% for Bilal Muhammad. So please let me know in the comments below what you think should be next for Leon. Who do you want to see as the next title challenger? Bilal Muhammad, Shavkat Rakhmonov, or something else? It seems pretty clear that those are the two guys, but if you have another wild, crazy idea, feel free to share it below. And then quickly, before we get into the flyweight championship fight, we will just discuss Colby Chaos Covington for a second, because he is now 0-3 in UFC welterweight title shots, 0-2 against Kamaru, 0-1 against Leon. And I think that shuts the door on any future championship opportunities at 170 pounds. Now, Colby doesn't seem big enough to go to 185. He seems almost sizable enough to make it down to 155, but that's still a big difference. That's a 15-pound difference from where he's been fighting for, a decade now in the UFC and longer before the UFC. So I don't know what he plans to do next. I know he mentioned maybe fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. They're both coming off of losses. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But Colby's a very big name. I don't know what his long play is here. I don't know how much he wants to continue fighting. Does he think he can get another championship fight at 170? I just don't see that happening. If it does, it'd have to be a very, very long time. So let me know what you guys think should be next for Colby after a very dramatic, crazy week that he was a part of, per usual, and just what it means for him, this loss. The 0-3 in title fights holds a lot of weight moving forward in his career. I think it's a very hard spot to try and bounce back from, regardless of who and what weight class it is in. Let me know all of your answers, or if you have the answers anyways, to those questions about Leon and about Colby in the comments below. Now, moving into the flyweight title fight, Alexandre Pantoja defended the belt successfully for the first time since beating Brandon Moreno earlier this year to become the champion. And he does it by going 2-0 against Brandon Royval. Flyweight division continues to thrive. Right now, it is a beautiful place to be, and it seems relatively clear what could be next for the champion. 5 fights in a row, 5 victories in a row for Alexandre Pantoja over Manel Kopp, over Brandon Royval now twice, over Brandon Moreno, over Alex Perez. This is an incredible win streak when you think about the flyweight division and the flyweight rankings. He's a very, very great, talented fighter, is Pantoja, and a great representative of the sport and a great champion. And as I alluded to, it seems clear what should come next. So he remains the champion heading into 2024. And we have a couple of top 10 ranked matchups coming. So we do have his former opponent, Manel Kopp, taking on Matheus Nicolau. I believe it's the first fight night of the year on January 13th. Could be wrong, but it's early on in 2024 regardless. That's number 5 versus number 6. And then we also have the former champion and person that Pantoja took the belt from, and Brandon Moreno, facing off against number 2 ranked Amir Albazi. Now that is in February in Mexico City, Mexico. They asked Dana about it at the post-fight presser, and he seemed relatively confident. This is Dana. No fights made the night of the fight, right? But he seemed to give a good, solid answer of that's probably a number one contender fight. Should Moreno win, he's one of the biggest stars in the UFC, in all of the sport, to be quite frank. He can get right back in there and continue the rivalry that he has with Pantoja because they have a history as well prior to this title fight in 2023. Amir Albazi, coming off of a huge win over Kai Kara France, now looking to beat Brandon Moreno, a former champion, and cement himself as a number one contender. So I like that. You have 1 and 2 scheduled to fight, and you have number 5 and 6 scheduled to fight in the first 2 months of the new year with a champion that just defended in December. I think it's all pretty solid timelines, and it lines up to a pretty clear picture of what could be next for Pantoja. Winner of Moreno and Albazi next, especially if it's Albazi. Should Moreno win, maybe there's a wrench thrown into things depending on the type of performance that a Manel Kape or a Matheus Nicolau could have in January. All in all, the fight was pretty solid. It was probably underwhelming for some, just considering the history that these two guys have in their fights. Royval, kill or be killed. Pantoja pushes the gas. His fight with Moreno was an all-timer in the flyweight division earlier this year. But it was high level. It was back and forth. Royval realized that he had to come back and dug deep in the 5th round to try and have big moments and landed great shots. Pantoja just proved to be a little bit better on the night. As I said, goes up 2-0 against Royval. Brandon's now 5-3 in the UFC, but he's one of the most electric and fun fighters to watch in the entire organization. Still young into the game. He could very well make his way into another championship opportunity before his career is over. Plus, he's a pretty big guy for flyweight. I wouldn't be surprised if he ever dabbles into bantamweight. Not necessarily soon, but I could see it eventually in his career. He's very long, very rangy. He's not necessarily thick. Pantoja looked pretty muscular in there last night, but I think there's a world where Royval could kind of keep some of that size and use it at 135. But for the time being, I'd like to see him stay at 125. Maybe fights with like a Kai Kara France off the top of my head would be a super fun, very fan-friendly fight, kind of run that history back between the two. Being that they first fought, 3 years ago now, it's been a while. KKF's done a lot since then. Brandon's obviously fought a ton since then. Maybe there's no necessarily a matchup that sticks out, but a type of fight like that necessarily. Staying in the top 5 or the top 10 at the most would be a big, opportunity for Brandon to bounce back and get his name back into the mix as quickly as possible. So let me know what you thought about the 2 championship fights at UFC 296, the final 2 fights of 2023. Leon remains and still defends the belt for the 2nd time. Is it Bilal Muhammad next or Shavkat Rakhmonov? Let me know. Let me know what you want to see for Colby Covington next. What does being 0-3 in championship fights mean for his future? And last but not least, Alexandre Pantoja. Does it seem clear to you the winner of Moreno and Albazi gets next? Or can that other fight between Nicolau and Manel Kape in January maybe at least have some weight in the war room for the next contender for Alexandre Pantoja? Let me know all your thoughts and answers to those questions in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed this recap. We'll be back for plenty more fight breakdowns, recaps like this one, MMA news, and fight announcements. Have a great week upcoming. Enjoy the holiday season if you are celebrating. And we'll be back. We'll have some content coming. I know there's like a month gap between fights, but we will have content here on the channel. News, I'm sure, will keep churning. Maybe talk about some recaps of 2023, some finishes, performances, cards, such and such. We'll put some thought into that and get some content out for sure. So have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next video.